What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. So over the weekend, the Helldivers 2 Sony situation has taken a turn for the worse. Somehow it just keeps getting worse every single day, and now it's to the point where the game itself has been delisted from multiple regions all across the world. We're gonna go over all of this stuff here today. Also, we will be talking about Endless Ocean Luminous, but not necessarily the game, a data mining that's happened, and that seems to show Nintendo making an interesting change, maybe because of some ideas they have in the future here. And then we'll also be talking about scrapped development plans for a new 3D Donkey Kong game. But this one would have been coming from Activision. So if you guys enjoy these videos, make sure you hit that like button, helps out a ton. And if new here to the Spawnwave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. And of course, members to the channel do get Newswave early and ad-free. If you'd like to learn more about that, click the join button down below this video. And we're gonna start today with Nintendo Switch Online. Specifically, the free game trial they're running right now. Throughout this week until May 9th, we can see this posted up over on their Twitter account. They say you can download and try the full Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic game at no additional cost. Again, that'll run the rest of this week. If you just wanted to buy the game at this time, it's 50% off anyway, so it's already kind of cheap there, but this is a classic BioWare game. It's one that I fully recommend to anyone who has NSO right now. Give it a download, see what you think. It runs well on the Switch. It's not a massive file size or anything. It's like medium file size technically on the Switch, but still in the world of 100 gigabyte games, this is absolutely tiny, but it's a really good Star Wars game. So if you're just a Star Wars fan, you've never really played it, but you have a Switch and NSO, I fully recommend downloading it, seeing what you think. I do think this is when BioWare was absolutely crushing it with their classic RPGs. This, then going into Dragon Age, then Mass Effect, of course, that kind of getting more towards like the action sort of RPG stuff, but still, awesome title. Fully recommended, especially with some of the bits and pieces for the story here that did end up apparently working into some of the extended universe for Star Wars. So yeah, definitely a classic. Absolutely worth checking out, especially since it's just part of NSO. You can just give it a download. Also, we did have Midori talk about a new Sonic game that's coming up that had people initially excited and then disappointment sort of followed. But we can see this is posted up by Midori, who says Sonic Rumble. That's it, just Sonic Rumble. But then they did follow up from that and saying it is a title that will be officially announced soon. All right, cool. Sounds good. This is the final title for the unannounced Sonic mobile title that is similar to Fall Guys. So that's kind of when the air got deflated out of the balloon at that point. There was disappointment there. It's like, oh, this is a Sonic mobile game, and it's a party game, I guess, like Fall Guys. I mean, look, Fall Guys, this is the situation with live service games, right? So one company may see another do something that really catches on, and Fall Guys did years ago. It was incredibly popular. So obviously Sega looks at that and goes, let's do that, but with Sonic characters, and we'll put a bit of a twist on it, and that'll be our live service push 3 years from now. I mean, at least they're doing it on mobile, so there is a market there I'm sure they can tap into because of just how large the mobile market is. When I saw that, I was like, okay, cool. That could be something interesting. And then more information followed. Okay, it's mobile, it's Fall Guys. I mean, we'll take a look at it, obviously. I don't know if it's something I'm necessarily going to get into, though. Oh, but speaking of live service games, maybe something that might be a bit more up my alley. xDefiant did get its preseason release date. It's weird with these live service things, right? It's like, oh, it's preseason. So it's not the actual, no, it is the release date. Okay, when you can play the game officially and it shows up on your consoles. We can see this posted up over on Ubisoft's site. They say the preseason for the free-to-play arcade shooter xDefiant is launching on May 21st, so a little over 2 weeks from now, for the Xbox Series X, S, PS5, and PC through Ubisoft Connect. Now, the action, they say, kicks off by offering 5 different game modes across 14 maps, 24 weapons, with 44 attachments and 5 playable factions inspired by Ubisoft franchises, each of which brings unique gameplay buffs and abilities to the fighting arena. I need your guys' help. Let me know if this game is actually fun. I haven't done anything in like the beta or alphas that they were running. I haven't really looked at any of the gameplay, but people have talked at least somewhat positively about this game on social media, so that's why I'm at least interested. It's free to play, so maybe I will just give it a download when it goes live on like the Xbox on the 21st and just see what we're dealing with. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with Helldivers 2, and I mean, just a disastrous situation right now that mostly seems to be spurred on by Sony now requiring, well, soon to be requiring this week, for new members of Helldivers 2, a PlayStation Network account sign-in. So you will need a PSN account. You got to go make one if you would like to play the game. The thing that's really seen the most pushback is it's been months of not requiring it, and now they're going to be doing that even for current players for Helldivers 2. All of that starting up in June. So they're kind of doing like a staggered release, if you will, for these logins. But the big problem people are pointing to, one, is the obvious alteration of live service and agreements and how, yes, you can be inconvenienced, but also just the game itself, the access, all those things can be changed because if you do not have a PSN account, you just can't play the game that you may have already purchased and been playing for the past couple of months now. But if you're in a country that does not support PSN, you just can't play the game without breaking terms of service. And that's been the biggest question that's really come up. But the Steam reviews have been getting absolutely crushed for Helldivers 2. I mean, if you just look at on SteamDB where it kind of does the comparison of the different reviews, like positive and negative, you have a blue bar and an orange bar. I mean, it is like falling off a cliff. One day there was over 140,000 negative reviews, all of which basically pointing to the change in the need for a PlayStation Network login. In fact, even Helldivers 1 has been seeing this pushback on their review page, and that doesn't even need a PSN login. But now it looks like Sony has an answer for people who are in regions that don't support PSN and wouldn't be able to play this game. They're actually pulling it from sale. Like, it's being delisted in many different regions. In fact, Wario64 has a post here that just lists all the different places you can no longer buy Helldivers 2, and it's quite lengthy. They say that the Steam is now unable to purchase in numerous countries after it was announced that a PSN login was soon be required, and it appears this number totals somewhere around 160 to 170 different regions. Yeah, that's quite a lot to just start delisting immediately after this information got out there. And Valve has even been shown to be doing refunds for this game somewhat. It's still unclear as to how that's happening because some people are posting up having over 100 hours of playtime in Helldivers 2 but are able to get a refund. I do wonder if those are people who are in regions maybe outside of the PSN network, if you will. I don't know if Valve is really going to be refunding people who turn in 200 plus hours of playtime in Helldivers 2 for, as people have said, false advertising or changing the agreement, when technically that agreement has been there this whole time on that Steam page for a PSN login requirement. And then one of the more interesting parts of this entire situation is the Arrowhead CEO is very outspoken and transparent, maybe a little too transparent over on X right now. For example, we can see this was posted up. This from that Arrowhead CEO saying, "Is this the moment to tweet? What, you guys don't have phones?" On serious note, we're talking solutions with PlayStation, especially for non-PSN countries. Your voice has been heard, and I'm doing everything I can to speak for the community. But I don't have the final say. This, by the way, racked up almost 2 million impressions. And to go a bit further, they've been asked many, many questions about the situation here. For example, when was the agreement signed for Helldivers 2 and that sort of thing. And they were pretty upfront about answering these questions. They said we signed the Helldivers 2 agreement 8 years ago, which, yeah, if you look at development, that lines up about right. It doesn't specify details such as account linking, which, I mean, if you go back 8 years ago, think about that, how long ago that was. You think Sony was thinking about linking PSN to PC? I doubt it. There are always requirements for publishers during development. This is one of them. We did discuss it, and it was deemed as important for PlayStation to have it for an online title. And it was implemented a couple of months before release. When servers exploded on launch, quick decisions had to be made, and such as turning off linking and Galactic War stats to be able to take the load off servers. We couldn't enable it again because of the risk to explode the servers again, and remember the negative feedback around that. And now finally, the requirement to re-enable came to PlayStation to help with moderation, and we had to comply. Even though there were concerns, there would be backlash. There was backlash, and now we're talking about it again. See, even at Arrowhead, which that's the biggest part now, obviously, is Arrowhead is just getting the brunt of this. Sony probably just like, oh, we're out for the weekend. We'll see you guys. We'll see you guys on Monday and see how it goes. Whereas Arrowhead community managers, everyone is probably getting beaten down right now. And there have been messages on Discord that have gone around, but you have to think about the amount of stress that they're undergoing currently because this game is massive. They had built up a really, really good community, just in general. People just having fun, being nice to each other in the game. It's weird stuff, right? Online discourse like that. But I mean, people were genuinely having a lot of fun playing a PvE game with Helldivers 2, and now this has completely derailed that entire community. Yes, I know, over a login, but still, it's kind of that idea of the agreement being changed months and months later. And then also, no one really wants to sign in if they don't have to, right, for PlayStation. That's just kind of the ways. If it was there at launch, working completely, and I know the servers were basically on fire, but still, if it was there and working, I don't think any of this would have happened because you would have bought into it knowing that you did have to have a PlayStation Network account.
But ladies and gentlemen, we have an update, and this happened late last night at midnight Eastern Time, and PlayStation put out a tweet basically rolling all of this back, backtracking on the decision for a PlayStation Network account being required to play Helldivers 2 on PC. They say, Helldivers fans, we've heard your feedback on the Helldivers 2 account linking update. The May 6th update, which would have required Steam and PlayStation Network account linking for new players and for current players beginning May 30th, will not be moving forward. We're still learning what is best for PC players, and your feedback has been invaluable. Thanks again for your continued support for Helldivers 2, and we'll keep you updated on future plans. So this entire thing right now with Sony, how they went ahead and implemented this in while it was originally planned at launch, now turning around and saying, okay, not so much, we're going to back off of this one. It does feel like Sony is kind of unsure as to what they're doing right now with this whole thing, and it's pretty clear that Arrowhead was not really on board with this because they expected the backlash. They got the backlash, and even I think they were maybe a bit caught off guard with how serious it was overwhelming there for a bit, right? So in this case, it's just a win for gamers on PC who did not want to have to sign in for a game that they had been playing for months now, and there was no reason really to have to sign in based on the fact that the game has worked this entire way. And then obviously for people in regions where they wouldn't be able to sign up for PlayStation Network, now they shouldn't have to worry about any of that. So overall, I would say this is a big win for gamers.
Next up, let's talk about something to keep an eye on here going forward when it comes to Nintendo. As we know, they are doing many ports and remasters currently as sort of this time period between generations, kind of this bridge right now where we're getting things like Luigi's Mansion 2 HD coming up. We have Paper Mario Thousand Year Door, and maybe we can see this is posted up. This is over on Vooks.net, noticing that we have Kirby and the Rainbow Paintbrush getting a new trademark here, along with the 3DS title Full Blocks, also known as Stretchmo. I didn't really play Stretchmo. People have to let me know if it was fun down in the comments. But Kirby and the Rainbow Paintbrush. It's not hard to believe that Nintendo would port a Wii U game to the Switch because they've done that a lot this generation. But that one definitely relied on the Wii U gamepad heavily. I mean, especially for multiplayer, right? Where you would have people using Wii remotes and you use the tablet, but still just being able to navigate through that game using the tablet, the touchscreen, a stylus, and get Kirby to the other side of the level. I'm not sure how they make that work with the Switch. So that's one of the reasons I'm kind of thinking this might just be that trademark renewal after so many years, right? It doesn't replace the old one, and that's kind of why I think it's caught or popped up on people's radar. But it could just be that. Something where maybe down the road they're able to figure out how to make it work. Or who knows, maybe they already have, and maybe that's something that gets announced and releases later this year to kind of round out the Switch's lineup of, yes, remasters and ports as they work into their next generation system still, sometime apparently in 2025. But let me know how you think they would make this Kirby game work. One that certainly relied a lot on having that Wii U tablet, which we don't really have anymore. Next up, let's talk about an interesting change that came along with Endless Ocean Luminous that did not get good reviews, and I've seen some people playing it, and it just looks kind of boring. I understand it being kind of a relaxing game, but it just isn't really clicking with me just seeing some of the gameplay for it. But who knows, maybe I'll come back to it later on when it's on sale or something and just pick it up for the collection. But people have been looking into the game itself when it comes to the files and the code, and take a look at this. This is an interesting one, as of course we've talked about a lot of the potential specifications for Nintendo's next system. This is posted up from Oatmeal Dome. It says the latest version of the engine, that being the Bezel engine, appears to support higher frame frame rates like 240 FPS. The Switch can only output 60 FPS, as they note there. This only applies to games that enable the variable frame rate mode. Not sure if the older engine versions also support this. So think of like WarioWare use Bezel engine. The Mario Party games use Bezel engines. There are a few others too. But okay, so you have the minimum variable frame rate at 10, the max at 240. That's just kind of a range there, obviously. But you know what? I've been thinking about this for quite some time. If Nintendo would work towards having a 120 hertz display in handheld mode, even so in the system, 1080p LCD, 120 hertz, but then also support that for 120 hertz TVs just obviously through HDMI 2.1. And that is something that NVIDIA, I'm sure, could get done along with their upscaling techniques and that sort of thing. And if you think about it, while we are looking at this next system from Nintendo as a snapshot in time during 2025, it is something that we assume Nintendo is going to try to push maybe another 7 or 8 years into 2033 maybe. And you see how the Switch is now. It's like, ooh, this thing is struggling to get to the finish line with some of its technical performance in different games now, whether it's resolution or frame rate. So Nintendo and Nvidia could be a bit more forward looking with this one, and have it enabled up to 240 frame. I don't know about that one, but I wouldn't be shocked, I'll say, if we did have at least somewhat of a focus even on 120 hertz. And I think certain games like platformers, fighting games, the next Smash Brothers maybe, could actually leverage that. And I think that'd be really interesting to see Nintendo kind of go in that direction, since we were hoping to get higher frame rate games this generation with the Xbox Series and the PS5. And the further we've gone in, we've actually gone backwards in terms of frame rate with some of this stuff. So I would like to see Nintendo maybe show up and set the bar a bit high, even if they can't reach it every time, at least try to push it up for everyone else. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about 2 projects that did not get out of development. One didn't even go into development. The other one, after about a year and a half, unfortunately was canceled and then shelved. One has to do with Donkey Kong, and the other one has to do with, yes, Tony Hawk Pro Skater, which we've discussed prior, but now we have at least a bit more clarity around that situation. This all, by the way, comes from this video here. This is over on Did You Know Gaming from Liam Robertson. It's titled Donkey Kong's Lost 3D Platformer and the Decay of Activision Blizzard. Highly recommend this one. It's almost 60 minutes long. There is a lot of good information there. I wanted to just point out a few topics. The first one having to do with Tony Hawk Pro Skater 3 and 4. We have 1 and 2, which is a phenomenal game recreation even of the first 2 Tony Hawk Pro Skater games. But as they say here, we settled on adding some handling features from the later games to reflect the way people remember the old Tony Hawk Pro Skater games. The improvements from 3 seem to bleed into people's memories of the first 2. This claimed one Vicarious Vision source to Robertson. They go on to say eventually it became clear that we didn't have time for more than 1 and 2, so the idea that we'd continue on and release 3 and 4 in some fashion was on the table. Unfortunately, Activision Blizzard denied the pitch for 3 and 4 because they needed Vicarious Visions for, you guessed it, Call of Duty, as well as Diablo 2. And then we saw what happened with Vicarious Visions, where they basically got merged into Blizzard, and that's where they are still now. So maybe they could break away from that, depending on what Microsoft wants to do, and they can return to some of these projects. But the one that I think caught a lot of people's eye was a 3D Donkey Kong game. This we can see over on My Nintendo News, who transcribed it, saying Nintendo was interested in working with Vicarious Visions, but Activision, who owned Vicarious Visions, wasn't interested in working with Nintendo. The founders of Vicarious Visions were the ones that were pushing the most for a partnership with Nintendo, left the company in April of 2016. At the time, a prototype of the game had been in the works for half a year, and it had a temporary Freedom codename until an official one was decided on. Donkey Kong Freedom was scrapped by the end of 2016. Again, unfortunate stuff, because Activision Blizzard, they wanted Vicarious Visions to focus on other things. And at that time, it actually wasn't necessarily Call of Duty. That was part of it. It was actually the Crash Bandicoot franchise then, which we know they did the Insane Trilogy, the Crash Bandicoot 4. So at least it wasn't pulling them off of that for Call of Duty, although they then, of course, went to Call of Duty after Tony Hawk. Either way, yeah, it would have been really cool to see this 3D Donkey Kong game, because that is the one that had been rumored that apparently had DK like grinding down vines with banana peels on his feet and stuff, because according to Miyamoto, he didn't want to get rope burn or vine burn. I do think we could eventually see a new 3D Donkey Kong game, because that does seem like the obvious direction for Donkey Kong at this time after some 2D outings and what we've seen games like Kirby be able to do with Forgotten Land. I would like to see a new 3D Donkey Kong game, mostly because we have to replace Donkey Kong 64. It's one of those nostalgia games where you really do, like, that game was great, right? And you go back and play it and you're like, oh, we really need a new 3D Donkey Kong game. And before we go to the comment of the day, we're taking a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday, where I asked, if you bought Helldivers 2, what platform did you get it on? Okay, 49% PS5, 46% PC, hey, and then 5% just bought it on both. I mean, it's just crossplay, and maybe you want to play it on the PS5 at some point, the PC at some point, sure, but wow, that really is almost a 50-50 split. And right now we see the PC side just in turmoil at this time. It is not looking great right now for that game on Steam. And while the concurrent player count numbers aren't affected currently, after May 6th, you'll see new players have to sign up for PSN. And then in June, current players will. So that is around the time I would expect any kind of viewable drop-off for concurrent player count. One that would be more than, oh, it's a Wednesday or something, like randomly, right, during the day where people are at work or not able to play the game, but see an actual drop-off. So until Sony has something to say about it, maybe that's what we should expect in about a month to see what really happens when those PSN login requirements go in effect. And then we'll finish up with the comments of the day, as you're seeing here. This is from Davis, who says, limited run is so janky, takes forever to get your stuff, and they have next to zero customer service. That's one of the reasons I really stopped ordering from limited run. It was more because it took forever to get anything from them. I think at one point I forgot I ordered something because it was a year and a half prior. That might have been the Jedi Knight bundle. It was something that I looked at and I said, okay, that's really cool. If they can hit that nostalgia from your childhood, you'll probably bite on it if it's not priced outrageous or anything. And it wasn't. But then I forgot I even ordered it, and I feel like it was more than a year and a half later. It just showed up, and I was like, wow, I did not know I ordered that. And then I look, it's like, oh yeah, that was so long ago that I completely forgot. So it's like, do I really want to order something that's going to take potentially years to get to me? Not so much. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today. Where's the Helldivers 2 situation on PC? Also, what about a Switch supporting 240 frames per second? Sounds outlandish, but do you think Nintendo could actually target 120 Hz maybe with their next device? Thanks, guys, for watching, and I'll see you next time.